Hey everyone, Kyle here. Welcome back to the Climbing Majority podcast, where Max and I sit down with living legends, professional athletes, certified guides, and recreational climbers alike to discuss the topics, lessons, stories, and experiences found in the life of a climber. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. All right, quickly before we get started, I have more posters in stock, guys. These things are super professional and have a scannable Spotify link on them. If you want to help out the show by hanging up a TCM poster in your local climbing gym, please DM us on Instagram at the.climbing.majority or reach out to us via email at theclimbingmajoritypodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's dive into today's episode. In our 2-hour-long conversation, we sit down with AMGA-certified guide Lindsey Hamm, or so aptly named the Hamminator. Hamm is an AMGA-certified single-pitch instructor and a certified rock guide. She also has completed her AMGA Ice Instructor course, advanced Alpine guide courses, and currently is on track to becoming the 18th female ever to receive an IFMGA pin. She has guided and climbed all around the Western U.S., and has even spent time in India and China. And at the time of this episode launching, she is in the middle of a climbing trip in Pakistan. Her quick and intuitive decision-making, combined with genuine laughter and an ability to be unapologetically herself, is a contagious force that undoubtedly has helped establish herself as a well-respected professional in the climbing community, and an inspiration to anyone who wishes to follow in her footsteps. We talk about how she found climbing, her stories of 3 separate ground falls that left her uninjured. We chat about the art of soloing, belaying, and since she is officially the first female on the podcast, we dive into her female perspective of the climbing community, the details of her life as a female guide, and how misogyny can plague the sport. And finally, we hear about what she is currently up to in the steep, rocky terrain of Pakistan.
Yeah,
nice. Officially, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Climbing Majority. Thanks for taking your time and your busy schedule right before you leave to speak with us. It means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so,
sure.
I guess, Max, if you're ready, we can kind of just jump in here, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally for us, like kind of the structure is like we've obviously had like a little bit of a long form podcast, and we kind of really like to get into like the, like who is our guest and what drew them into this lifestyle, like you're like, where did you grow up, and how did you get into climbing and stuff. And so, if you don't mind just giving yourself like a little bit of an introduction for the audience, and then kind of starting from there, that's really a great place where we like to start.
Sweet. Right now?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm Lindsey Hamm. I'm from Kingwood, Texas.
Woo!
So, whoop, whoop. Definitely a Texas girl at heart. I still have my very traditional ways about me, with about 4 or 5 cowboy boots that I still own, and a couple heels, some kitten heels, just in case if I ever go out. So, I moved from Houston, Texas, or Kingwood, Texas, to San Marcos, Texas, and Austin, Texas, like at 18 to go to school. Started at Austin Community College, then went over to Texas State, and that's where I got a degree in communications with a minor in advertising with a minor in design.
Super, okay.
I was president of the advertising club in Texas State.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. Actually, I love drawing with charcoal, like kind of my favorite medium. But
cool.
I met a bunch of like outdoorsy people during this time at Texas State that a guy friend of mine, Connor, brought me to the climbing gym at Texas State, and I thought he wanted to go on a date with me, and it wasn't a date. just a friend. So it was really funny and cute on my end because I'm like, "Hee." But I went to the climbing gym but I was an ultra runner.
Oh, wow.
I didn't I dabbled in rock climbing at the time, but it wasn't like until later in my 20s is when I started. So I think I've done like 5 ultras. That's ultra is considered after 26 miles, so you can do like 50 days and stuff. So and I've done a couple on my own without like any races. So I'm sure I've done quite a few. And then when I was a little bit after that, my other friend Josh got me into climbing outside, and I was like 25 or 26 is when I really started climbing. And then I met my ex-boyfriend who was going through the guide process, and kind of just was like took the reins whenever I could, and we both like kind of grew together in the climbing. We were about the same level. He might have been better at certain things than me, and vice versa. So it was actually a pretty good partnership with the climbing because I was psyched to take that he was not psyched about. It went both ways. So I dropped what I was doing and because I had moved from Austin to Denver for a job, and I actually worked at this media entertainment um, job where I licensed out video content for commercials and movies.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I met Gary, my ex, and I just started flying. I dropped everything and moved to Durango, Colorado, where I actually have family. And then it kind of just like went, from heels to mountain boots pretty fast, and started learning the medium of like rock and ice and Alpine and ski with him and other friends as well. Like had a bunch of mentors like Marcus Garcia and Don Glantz and Kitty Calhoun and all these other humans in that area that have kind of helped me go forward with my career if it was just recreational or guide guide track. So, and there's way more people too, which I'll give love to at some point. But yeah, I think like just having an athletic background, like I was cheerleader, like all through high school, or not all through high school, but some high school, and then did competitive cheerleading, swim team, basketball, like all those things. So it was
Awesome.
just, I think when you have all that underneath you, like you can kind of jump into a lot of different sports if you want. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like a
yeah,
body awareness.
For sure.
yeah.
I think that's super interesting. Like, I really resonate. Like, I found climbing a little bit. Well, later, I say later, just because like we see like those youth sport teams where you have like some kid who's like 8 sending like 512 or something. You're just like, really, man? Like, but or the girls as well are doing that. But I definitely resonate with that aspect. I'm just kind of curious, actually. Like, I actually have a little bit of a background in endurance training. Like, that's kind of what I got into just before I got into climbing. Like, I did an iron, some fondos, I ran like one ultra. Like, how do you feel like your propensity to suffer through those kind of events and stuff like that? Like, how, and obviously having such a large aerobic base, like how has that like complemented you getting into climbing? Do you feel like it was just like a, hop, skip, and a jump to just get there, and it just felt pretty natural for you?
Well, I think if have been in any athletics as a child and have to go to practice and having like, like I had to be in cheerleading by a certain time or I wasn't allowed in, like where I get punished by doing, whatever handstands or back handsprings after practice. I think when you have like the structure and as a young child and know that, I mean, I had some tough coaches that like, I mean, we were throwing up in the middle of class
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
points.
Crazy.
So, and being in like a very competitive state as well, like, the competitive cheerleading was like all the time, I'm like always practicing. So like having that mindset as a child, like was easy for me to go into like other sports that I wanted to touch base on. Like running I always liked running, but like I was really into long distance, and that shit like you're suffering.
Mhm.
Especially in Texas when it's like 90 to like 110 and you have to wake up at 2 in the morning and start running. And that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
just to get like 14 miles in without, and it'd still be like 90 degrees, you
Yeah.
know? And like,
Wow. Yeah.
so just having that like young grit in general and knowing when you fucking play hard, you play hard, you know? And yeah, like that focus, laser focus was, I can feel it when I'm on, and I can obviously feel it when I'm not on. And I think we all
Mhm.
relate to that. So
Yeah, your story reminds me a lot of my girlfriend, who was a competitive gymnast when she was in her young years. And there's a lot of parallels that I've heard her talk about that you just mentioned, just with the
mhm.
training and the the throwing up and the hard coaches and all that stuff. I definitely think it's an awesome environment for a kid to be in, and especially if they're trying to pursue any sort of athletics later in life. Because yeah, I mean, just like you said, picking it up, she transferred just as well. She started climbing when she met me, and she's starting to climb like 11s, within the first 2 years,
Sick.
just because, of the body awareness and the all the training that she received in the past. So super interesting that's kind of where you came from. With
Yeah.
the aspect to your progression into getting into climbing, it seemed like you started in a gym. That was correct. That's what you said.
Yeah. Definitely in the gym. Um,
How long in the gym before you transferred to outside?
I think like maybe a couple weeks, you know, like
Hell yeah,
just
that's
in
awesome.
like
Super cool.
maybe even a week. I just remember like them bringing me, and I think I started leading like immediately too because I had like
Nice.
no fear.
Do you
So
recommend that, like, to other
I don't know,
people?
if you want to fucking go for it, go for it. But like get some, like my big thing is like at least get some instruction on like
Uh-huh.
the like mechanics, everything. It's like, hey, what does this rope do? Where does the rope come into play? And kind of like having a little bit of a nice mentor there. Like even if
Mhm.
like hopefully this person that you're with who is letting you lead has like good peace. And when I was doing that, I went out with guys that like had SPIs or like a instructor course underneath them. So I was pretty lucky to fall into a basket of good eggs, you know, and like
Mhm.
it was really great for me because they made me like do all the checks and like showed me how to clip, and I practiced that prior than like I didn't like I was like, cool, I know that I'm allowed to fall here, it's okay, and we talked about that. So for me, I think at the time, like I've always had really good people, you know, pushing me along this. So it sucks for me when I do see bad things out there in the single pitch environment more so than
Yeah.
even multi pitch, where you're just like cringing like this person's gonna get hurt, you know? And like
Yeah.
but I think that like I am one that like I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself. So I know that when I see something and I'm like, I can totally do that. I understand what's going on. Like I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and go for it. And I think that you just have to have some intelligence about it about yourself, you
Mhm.
know, and self awareness.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I think that sounds just like a lot of, to use your own word, like grit, like body self-awareness, and just like also like understanding like, the classic climbing, like try hard, you know? And
mhm.
so I think there's a lot of that involved, which once again, like I generally think like if people are gonna have a recipe for success starting out in climbing like that, you kind of know. It's like if you're having second guesses or you're not like jumping on it and you don't have like a pretty big background of athletics or suffering, maybe it's not the right way to go, but obviously it's worked for you.
I also think that people that are like really really good at problem solving um tend to do really well as in this sport, you know, and
Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
they they can like do puzzles really well or like have some good critical thinking, maybe even within school.
Mhm.
And I think that is something that I've seen too in the young um with the young kids, you know. So I've seen that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It definitely takes a lot of critical thinking and a certain level of intelligence, especially when you start to trad climb. It's like almost more risk mitigation and puzzle solving than it is actually climbing, depending on where you're at.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
We like to ask kind of this question to round kind of yourself out as like a climber, kind of where are you at right now in terms of grades and kind of like, do you solo? What's your preferred style? Like, if you don't mind sharing some of that kind of specific information.
Sure. At the moment, I am climbing actually pretty well for someone who has been guiding every day since June 25th. Still climbing like 511 trad outside and
Nice.
probably 12s, but I haven't had the opportunity to go really see. Climbing, the V6s, V7s in the gym and then outside like V5, V6, which I've, like either I hit or miss on them, depending on the style too. Um, uh, it, they're not taking me that long in the sessions to get. But again, like right now we'll see because I'm going to Pakistan. So I'm hoping that like all the training I've been doing, like I bring my training stuff on the mountain, so I'm like doing that. But I do solo. It depends on the solo. Like there's a number of climbs that I've done by myself. I think sometimes it's nice to go on a solo climb. And if I'm actually feeling it, if I'm not, like I'll feel that mountain sense is what I call it, or intuition, that burning feeling like I'm not doing this today. I'm like, I will pick and choose and I will listen to that thing that's going to keep me, here for a little bit longer. Yeah, like sport climbing, like in the probably like 12s right now. Like that's what I've been doing at the gym. So I'm hoping that they've kind of related. I also think I'm in Washington where it's really freaking hot right now. So like you're just totally melting off of the rock. So, and I haven't like really seen what I've been doing. So maybe I should like downgrade myself even more. 511 is what I'm climbing. So there you
I mean,
go.
it's all still very, very impressive.
No, for sure.
I mean, for someone who's like trying to stay fit, like I'm probably just climbing 511 right now. I know that I can always climb 10D and 11A and 11B. And like, I think that's like my base essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think soloing is like a beautiful practice if it's something that you want to do. I think that there's, like something to be said about, the media that comes out with all the soloing and how actually dangerous that is. And I think that there's times and places for soloing in the mountains too. Like I guide Alpine a lot and and I climb Alpine a lot where I'm like, I'm coming off the rope. It's more detrimental for me to be on this fucking rope with you than not. And I think that practicing soloing is actually can be a good thing, but we all know the risk of it, and I think that I'm not going to do something that's outside of my wheelhouse one, and I'm going to like be pretty particular of where I'm climbing at, like how chossy, like what's the climb about, I like will make sure I've kind of gone over that process or those like little checkpoints about the climb. Have I done the climb before? Do I have the right shoes on? Am I mentally there? Like I don't just like go, I'm going free soloing so I can put it on the fucking Instagram. No, I'm not like that. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that.
I'm just wondering for like our audience, like, so like if you were gonna on-site solo something, obviously like given all this, like if you're researching it, the conditions you're doing with your mountain sense, what like how many grades lower than your normal typical like rope on-site is that solo gonna be? And then if you're soloing something maybe that you're projecting, I don't know if you do that or not. Just trying to build like awareness with our audience, to give people an idea that it's like, yeah.
So I've done actually a 5'9" solo before. And that was an on-site. It was actually in the Palisades in California because I was guiding the Palisades a couple of days later. Actually, I had a day in between, and I was guiding 3 of them, and that goes up to like 5'8", 5'9", and I sold those, and I think I was just like in it, and really like I knew that I could do it, and I had, like I mean, it's 5'9". I climb much harder than that, but the consequence is higher. But I felt it like great that day, and I think again, it's like
Yeah.
I think I'm not, if I were a beginner climber, a novice climber, even intermediate, and I was still shaky in certain parts of my climbing, I'm probably not going to be going soloing just yet. Like I'm not just going to jump into it. I kind of want to be a mature climber and have gone through a bunch of the grades and I've climbed in a lot of different spots, then I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna start soloing, like if I
Yeah.
feel the need.
Mhm.
I
Well, I
also know
think
a
just
lot of
like
soloists. Yeah, go ahead.
I think soloing just in itself is just like honestly, I almost view it like an entirely different sport. And like an example I'll give right now is like, do you know Magnus Midbo? I think his name is that like Norwegian climber who has that really famous YouTube channel. Well, if you
No,
don't know
I'm
him, no
sorry.
worries. But he recently did a video where he went soloing with Alex Honnold in Red Rocks, and he solos like a 5'9" route that like Alex Honnold like appropriately chose for him. And this guy climbs like
Mhm.
V15, and he was like really, really rattled, and like mentally it was a huge battle for him and stuff. And I just think it's such an interesting thing for people to really understand. Just like like if you can climb V15 and on site like 514, like B, C, D, whatever this guy's climbing, and then you go on the 5'9" and you're like pretty panicked and like, I don't know if I'd ever do this again. It's just like, not that I know from my own experience of soloing, but
Mhm.
it just shows that it's just almost like a completely different sport, right? Because with the rope, this person would just completely walk up the rope. It'd be absolutely no challenge. So
Mhm.
I just like getting that kind of information of just like showing a real contrast of what the actual difference of like, you look at a really strong climber and then what they're actually going to solo, right? So yeah, I think it's
Well, it's
interesting.
all mindset, right? Like it's all mindset. It's like
Yep.
Mhm.
I'm not expecting every climber to ever want to solo. Even your
Mhm.
515, or I'm sorry, their V14, 514 climber, just because they're like that, I'm not going to assume that
Totally.
they're soloists because I don't think that every climber should be a soloist. I
Yeah.
think that
Fair.
it's all in the human, like me, Lindsey Hamm, will go solo things that I know that I'm psyched about and I want to go climb and I don't have a partner and I know I'm competent and I'm gonna go try it. And I don't think I know plenty of, really high level climbers that would never solo, and I know some that do. And I don't want anybody to be like, I guess I have to solo if I'm a climber because that's not what I'm trying to say. I think it
Mhm.
should be your personal preference. Like you've done your due diligence within yourself, that you can go and do these things. And I think that for me, I got kind of wrapped into it way kind of fucked up because um, I don't know if you guys know what Vestal Peak is. It's on like, it's in the San Juans in Colorado, kind of near, Silverton and Durango. Well, I was with my ex-boyfriend and a bunch of our friends and we soloed this like 5-6, which most people, rope up for. I'm from Texas, fresh off the boat, don't know shit, and I go and do this with them thinking it's a normal thing that people do. So I don't know if in my brain that, I got kind of like lucky that I don't know if it's luck or just like happened to like be in the group of people that were soloing and it seemed fine. And that's how I started climbing. Like I kind of got thrown into certain situations and I was like, YOLO, like I don't, what's up with
Yeah.
this? I just like had no awareness probably at the time. And that's like, right. So we think about like a luck bucket versus, experience. Like my luck bucket was really high and my experience was really low. But as my, experience goes higher, my luck goes out, and so I mean, I've definitely have decked twice to the ground,
Oh.
on ropes. So it's not like, I've had some issue, had some stuff happen and close calls and whatnot. So it's like, I think that my luck was just really high at the time too, with
Yeah.
some of these solo,
How'd you deck? I'm really interested in that. Like, did pieces
times.
pull or what happened?
Yeah, so I was climbing this route in Durango that, Marcus Garcia put up, and I was trying to do the extension, which is like a 12A, 12B, and it's pretty spicy. And I think I was getting like the second ascent or something, or the first female ascent of it. I am cruising the 11D, 12A part at the bottom, and the first and second bolt are pretty spread out because he put it up on lead. So they weren't like, yeah. So that's where he could drill, right?
Yeah.
So I'm at the second bolt. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm freaking sending this thing today. Like, I climbed it so beautifully, right? So I was psyched. I'm like, all right, this is going well. My feet are at the second bolt, like just like on the same plane, and I slipped on lichen and I fell and I took a static fall, and I guess my carabiner. I left my because it's too it's like a sport / trad climb, so it's like starts with a sport climb, goes on into a trad climb. Well, the first little bit, like I'm at the second bolt. When I left, I was like, all right, you've got a little bit of a run out. Everything looks great. I remember saying this myself. And I fell, I took a static fall. And I guess when I had like climbed above my piece or my quick draw, it had the nose hook had set on the hanger. Nothing was open. And I fell and I cross-loaded it and fell 25 feet to the ground.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And my juicy boo ass just bounced like a boss because I'm all freaking muscle and tried to get up and lead it again like a psychopath.
Wow.
And I remember like Devin, Finn, and Crystal, and everybody was like, you are not allowed to climb anymore. I'm like, I'm gonna lead it again. And then went to the hospital, had some definitely had I wasn't wearing a helmet. So, but I'm surprised I'm walking, to be honest, because the landing area is like just filled with rocks, like pointy rocks. And I'm lucky I didn't kill my freaking belayer,
Wow.
I'm a cannonball. Like I am one to like want to miss if I'm falling down the it's like, I'm surprised she didn't get hurt. And so we like brushed it off. And so that was my first deck. And then my second one was at Index, Washington. And I was I'll tell you, breakup power is like the best power I've ever had in my entire life. Like, if I could get broken up with like every other week, I'd be super psyched because I just love the enraging of like the power that comes out of it. So, anyways, so I was at Index. I just ended my 6-year relationship, and I was like on-sighting like 11s, like in Index, Washington. It's hard there. Like 511 Index is like much harder in other places. That's why climbs are named Index 511, they end up being 513.
Whoa.
Because they're just like so hard. So I was climbing this thing called Shirley. I'm like, just being all big headed and cocky because I had been climbing so well. And I don't put an extra piece in, and I freaking biff off of it and like hit the ledge, then tumble on the ground, and there's like access fund people everywhere, and everyone's like watching me. I had the helmet on this time, and I get up and I'm like, oh my God, and I start laughing because that's like my stress reaction, and I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? And
jeez.
I shrug it off. I lead it again right off the deck. I do not send it, by the way. I am like, my legs, like the adrenaline have like worn off. So like and this is a stem problem too. So I have like, I'm hurting up there. And then like, I come down after getting the rope up, and this guy's like, I'm going to marry you. I'm like, no, I'm a fucking psychopath. What are you talking about?
She was like, only if you want to break up next week. I've got this really hard project. I'll date you for a week and then we can break up.
I just think an emotional, like, obviously I'm like a manic, but it was like, those are the 2 times I decked. And, and I definitely decked one more time. Okay, this is a fun story. So I was at the Moab Rotary Park, whatever, and I was doing my hangboard session, and I'm on this really tight, like I finally got to like 8 mil or 10 mil, like really small, and I was like, freak yeah. And I'm trying real hard, and I freaking pitch off my hangboard flat right on my back, like pretty good fall. Like I would call that a straight up deck as well.
Yeah, it's a miracle that you're not injured.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So like, how do you feel like those situations have like affected you as a climber? Like, have they kind of just been totally brushed off and you're just like, this is just part of the trade, and like you said, your luck bucket's gone down a bit? Or do you feel like that has actually impacted you and you're doing certain things to mitigate that? Like, I'm just wondering like your psychology around those kind of incidents, because obviously they're like you're pretty rad and super stoked, but like they're obviously really serious in a sense, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. They have definitely impacted me. Like,
Yeah.
I still get nervous. Like, I'll like, if I know there's this climate index that like the first and second bolt, like it makes me nervous. So I actually double up my like draws now on that type of thing, just in case if there's any like issue. I also like have to have a really good belayer. Like, I'll have to like, for some reason, I'll just like, I can't like focus if I don't have a belayer that's right with me, because then like I'll like think that everything's gonna fall apart too, right? Even though I guide, like I've guided like 11 plus trad with my clients, but my clients are really good belayers, so like it helps like cancel out some of my fear with like the gear part, because I was like, it's okay, like this person's gonna catch me regardless of like what happens, like I'll be okay. So like, but there's been times even sport climbing where I'm like like way more fearful than trad climbing, because one, I just feel like trad, I've climbed above my pieces so much, and with sport climbing, when I did climb above my piece that one time, I have PTSD for sure from it, and I get way more nervous sport climbing than I do trad climbing, even if like the trad climb is going to be a bigger fall. It's because it didn't happen. Like,
Yeah,
my
exactly.
equipment didn't fail when I decked the second time. It was me being a freaking idiot and cocky. And you know what? The climb was like slapped me right in the face. It's like, no, bitch, you're going down. Like, because I
Yeah.
didn't respect the discipline at the time.
Yeah.
Plug a piece in, girl, and be safe, because you want 3 pieces in before the rope like really comes into play. And like, I just was being stupid. But the first one was like a legit, like, wow, like I actually saw physics happen. I saw it go on the minor axes like that, like crossload pulling,
Yeah.
on both axes. And it was like, that's something that like you get to learn at like some of these, you can read about and see, but like I actually experienced the fall like that. So like for me, like, sometimes I get nervous about carabiners, and I'm like, I'm just going to double this up, even if it's not necessary, but it just helps me out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
hell yeah. And there's some days where I get high anxiety, and I'm like, dude, I'm just not going to lead today. I'm just going to be a top rope hero, and that's totally fine,
Yeah.
But sometimes I have to overcome it and be like, you know what? Stop. You're fine. When that's not going to happen every time I go out. A carabiner going to like snap like that. You know what I mean? So for me, I have to like not allow my brain to get the best of me, and just like be like calm and confident. And sometimes what I've learned from my friend Lore, they told me like, just go and take a fall on your climb prior than, maybe if you're nervous, like go and take a quick lead fall, even if it's on gear or sport, just to get it over with. And then it's like,
It's out there.
you're good.
Yeah.
It's out there, and when I was just trying this other climb, I just needed to take the fall a couple times, and I took the fall a couple times before I even like really went for the climb, and it helped
Nice.
out a whole lot. So
Yeah.
because I had already ruined my onsite, I wasn't worried about it. I was like, so it didn't happen,
You had
So.
mentioned before that you were looking for a good belayer. What characteristics do you look for, and what does that mean to you?
Oh, that's so good. So I think it's more of like, this sounds all like, wokeness, but like, I gotta feel the vibe between us. Like, is it like, I want to feel good energy. Like like you can feel each other's like anxieties, I believe. Or like, maybe we're just not like, I don't know. There's some people who are my best friends, and it could be like size. Like I have a friend that's like way smaller than me, and I love her. She's probably one of the best freaking belayers out there, but I get so scared I'm gonna like destroy her. I'm like, I'm gonna kill her. I can't do it. And like, and we've talked about that. And like, she's caught me on big catches before. And sometimes I'm like, I just need you to catch me, like once or twice so I can feel comfortable with it. And I think it's just more of like communication too, like
Mm.
how we've communicated on the phone prior times going out climbing. If it's like, like expectations, like how I'm feeling today. I know it sounds like a lot, but like I do ask these questions or at least reveal them whenever I'm going out climbing. Like, hey, like I was really psyched yesterday, but today I'm not. Like, I might be a timid climber. Are you okay with that? It's like it's about the person or both of us like listening to each other about what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. The week, the month, the day, like everything changes. So I think that when you can listen to your partner, that's a freaking great thing. And of course, I want to know that they can catch me and they know how to use their belay device. And like, obviously, they've like gone through some training and, like, because there's some things that I've learned with like belaying smaller people or, than me. I weigh like 145 and then I have like, someone who's like much smaller, like 100 pounds. Like I have to, do something different, than the
Yeah,
person
so
who's like
let's
closer to my weight.
let's stop right there because that's actually a question that I wanted to ask you.
Mhm.
You know, the weight disparity between leader and belayer, especially when you're climbing trad routes. Because
Mhm.
they have invented the ohm device for sport routes, um,
Mhm.
and that's been effective. I'm 200 pounds, probably like 210 with a full rack, and my girlfriend is like at 100 pounds, and so that's like a big weight disparity, and so it freaks me out whenever I have her belay me. For people in our circumstances like yourself as well with the lighter belayer, what kind of steps can you take to kind of help alleviate the stress and make it safer if that's possible at all?
Yeah. Like say if you're on a multi-pitch, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean even
uh,
even single pitch trad route, just
okay.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
Ground anchors, like ground anchors, like that's the first one to think about. Right. And training her about how much slack needs to be in the system, and like kind of going through that motion. That's a huge thing too, or whoever it is. I think
What
that like, sorry, go ahead.
what kind of distance between the ground anchor and your belayer should there be? Like how far should they get pulled up to allow a dynamic catch with the rope rather than being like anchored a foot away from the ground? Like what kind of distance is best?
Right. Like we don't want to be super far from the crag, right? We want to be a little bit closer to the crag. So I'm hoping that you have that ability to have the rope, like I think it's more of like placement of where you're at. Specifically like some ground anchors, you might have to have a really long tether, right? So then you
Hmm.
can stay close. So the big thing is like I don't want to fly 5 feet, like or 15 feet into the air, obviously, right? Like I think like what's the first bolt? Like what do you think like the average height is to the first bolt at a climbing gym?
In a gym,
Like it's
10 to
yeah.
15.
Okay, so like that's has like usually like I go up to the first, you know, bolt, whenever I don't have a ground anchor on and someone says, big as you. So like maybe having that like I don't want to go like I want to like be able to fly up like 5 feet, and
Hmm.
keeping me to the ground, like I don't want to be hitting my partner either, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so there, I mean, I think that I would have to really like like I haven't measured that out, so I
Yeah,
don't
that's fine. That's
know.
fine.
But I just know with specifically with because with like people of similar bodies or body weight, like I know that I don't have to give them a whole lot. Like I'm going to give them an appropriate amount of slack out, like that smile, and I'm going to probably like counterbalance them a lot.
Hmm.
And then with the smaller person, it's like I've done this with my friend where I pause the rope and then throw it out.
Mm.
So I'm throwing out the slack a little bit more. So I'm pausing it, throwing it, and it gives her a softer catch.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because we're trying to give soft catches, not hard catches. And I think that there's time and places for hard catches. But, when you have someone that's the crux is like right at the beginning,
Hmm.
you really don't want to slam them into the wall because how many times can their feet really hit the wall without them being like annoyed, getting angry? and then also getting hurt,
Also
so there's
producing
this
more force on whether it's a bolt or a piece would depend as well too, right? Like more
totally.
force in the system, not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
Totally. So like there's so many things to work on. And I think a lot of it's trial and error with your partners.
Yeah.
Too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
Have you tried?
Fascinating.
Are you familiar with the Ohm device?
I see it at the crags now a lot, which I think
Okay.
is really cool because don't you do it to like the second bolt or something or the first bolt?
Yeah, it's as long as the first bolt's high enough. Yeah, it adds friction to the system and it helps a lot. I was just curious if you had any on-site practice with using it for a trad climb, like possibly building a multi-directional piece at the base or something like that.
Not yet, but I will now that you say that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
No, that's it. I mean, like it's a new piece that I should explore. Like I haven't explored it yet, and maybe one I haven't had the opportunity because maybe I just am a little old school with things, and that's fine. But like I've been seeing it more, and I'm like, "Whoa, that's really smart."
Yeah, it's a lifesaver.
I've never used one personally, but the feedback that I've gotten, I used to work at an outdoor retailer store, like selling lots of climbing equipment and stuff, mountain equipment co-op. And the feedback that I receive from people who use it is like it can give you a pretty hard catch. So like if the disparity is really large, or you're like climbing with your kid or something, it seems like a really good idea. But like potentially if you were like climbing on gear or something and like you didn't want to have like a really hard catch. And once again, totally anecdotal, like secondhand information. So I don't think this should deter people from looking into it or buying it. And I think you probably get some good reviews online. But that's what I've gotten anecdotally is like it's going to be a harder catch. Like you don't have as much versatility to actually change what's going on in this system if you want to. So that's a drawback, I think.
Yeah, I think you raised an interesting point with that. I think that if the disparity isn't substantial, that the device is going to pull a lot more friction in there and add a harder catch. Whereas if the disparity is really, really large, it's going to kind of bring those forces to a more manageable level.
Like you said, Lindsay, like you might want a hard catch or a soft catch at the beginning, and then you might want to swap that at the end, depending on how the climb is, right? Like you might want to actually cater what's going on. And you can't really do that if there's a device that's going to fix the amount of friction in the system. So I think that's another interesting aspect to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's always those pros and cons of the new, technology. Like, right? Like if I have a ground anchor, I can actually play with the rope then a little bit more where I'm standing, especially if I've kept the slack out of the system from me to the ground anchor, right? Like I'm keeping tension and then controlling the rest of the rope, the slack or not as much slack as I have going on whoever climber that's on the other end of the rope. I think also like with those devices, like I just never have used it yet, and maybe I might, maybe I won't. Next time I'm with a friend that has one, I'll experiment with it. But
cool, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't give you that.
No,
it's all good.
All good. I'm curious when you're like guiding clients. Do you like have a preference whether a client uses an ATC or a gree? Like, is there a preference there for you?
Yeah, I think that like if I'm rock guiding with them or anything harder than okay, well there's a couple things, right? Like one, if the client, I ask them like, what are you more comfortable climbing with or belaying with? And they're like, I belay all the time. I've done catches or, with my ATC, or they say that about their gree. And maybe I've never climbed with them before. I tend to side on the air of like what they're more comfortable with.
Yeah.
I do bring a gree and sometimes I'll show them, but I've also don't want to like there's pros and cons of switching their familiarness, right? Like I don't want to like get sandbagged by getting like bringing up rope and then they're short roping me and I'm actually in a crux and it pulls me off the route, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And then worried about then there's like what if they don't catch me, like let the rope slide through their device. Well, there's ways that I can prevent that is put knots. Maybe if I'm the first little bit is like the crux, I'll put a knot further down the rope. And so specifically with an ATC, so if I do fall, I'm possibly not gonna hit the ground. So there's like little things that I can do. Now if the gree, like we, hopefully I can do a nice little tutorial at the base of our climb and just kind of go over the gree. And I make sure, like, I'm like, show me how you feed out slack. Like, we're going to go over this, and we do a couple like practice runs, and then we go from there. And then there's sometimes I'm like, just feed me out a lot of slack. I'm just going to go up this climb real quick. Yeah, I think that, like, if the grade is getting harder, I'm going to side on, we're going to learn with the gree. And I'll take time to teach them that. Now, if I'm in the Alpine, I'm doing ATCs, or I'm bringing a megajoule with me because the megajoule is light and it's a third hand. So there's all these like different things, and it depends on the grade too. For me, it's like if it's only a 5.9, I'm probably just like, you can just play with an ATC in the Alpine. It's totally fine. Like but if we're getting up to 10D 11s, I'm like, I want a little bit more security for me.
Well, I was just saying, I've never actually personally used a megajoule, but I'm familiar with it. It has essentially the indent for the carabiner to clip the rope, so it's like hypothetically self-locking, even though they don't say it's like a hands-off device, right?
Yeah, so I say blocking and not locking, so I don't confuse that terminology either, because nothing is hands-free. And so, it has the same abilities as like an ATC or a plaquette or guide, ATC guide, reverso, all those things, but it's just like a lighter weight, and it has a third hand as well. So just like you just have to load it correctly, how the directions have asked you to load it. So then it becomes a camming device if, someone were to fall. Yeah. And it breaks it. Yep. So it's just like a gree, but a little bit different.
I think that's a really interesting point, though, is like if you are in the Alpine, because obviously like there's belay era, there's falling, but like you could even go to like falling ice or falling rock, right? If your belayers hit on the head and they're like knocked out, you're all of a sudden free soloing pretty much, right? Like if they have an ATC or something, whereas at least like with a gree or something that has the so-called third hand, there's that little extra degree of error, right? Which is
but think about with ice or Alpine, grees don't do well in ice. So I'm going to be thinking about that as well when I'm climbing with people. Like, is there the pilot that I can use instead of the gree? Like there's like other good belay devices that actually work if it's been frozen too. And so, making sure that when you've read the directions or done your research on the belay devices, depending on the discipline that you're using it with, just pack appropriately.
And I think that's actually a really good point. I've never actually heard someone speak to belay devices like that. I think it's a cool way to think. Like there are different modalities for each belay device, and we tend to think like, oh, there's like 15 to choose from. Let me just pick one. But there seems to be an actual like use for each device, and you can have an array of them and choose the appropriate tool for the task you're trying to complete.
Right. Like with skiing, I have 4 different pairs of skis. I'm sure I know more skiers that have like 7 pairs of skis because they have everything. Each one of them does something for the application, or the tour of the day. Totally. So, we have that ability, and I'm sorry it costs so much, but once you have it, is an investment. And then you like you can choose your belay device of the day, and then it's not as much wear and tear, whatnot. So,
sorry, you go.
Oh, one thing to go back about the belaying too, having that catching spot. I wanted to say something about like catching hard catches and soft catches. Like this climb that I just was working on, I was happy to have a little bit of a harder catch because there's a ledge, and he kept me off at the ledge.
Totally.
So I just wanted to like speak one little thing about that. Like it is terrain assessment. Where
absolutely,
like if I want them to get over a lip or not fall on to something, that's gonna dictate the amount of slack too, right?
Totally.
So I just
potentially, or I was saying like even potentially if you've just climbed and your next piece and there's a ledge below you, maybe double up because like if the piece pulls, you're decking, right? It's like the same thing as having like one piece between you and the ground, maybe. So
right. So being protected. Yeah. So I just wanted to that just for 2 seconds. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, no,
Totally
that was
awesome.
great
That's a
information.
really great point. I know Kyle and I, we've talked about this a lot, right? Where it's like, there's
Yeah.
this like interesting aspect to like trad climbing where it's like, okay, you get in and the grades are super easy, but the falls are actually all way worse. Like 5.6 to 5.9, like all of your falls are like cheese gratered and you're decking ledges and you're hitting things and like they're quite terrible. So it's like, okay, the climbing's easier and more straightforward in an aspect, but like, it's not like some vertical, 510D or something where it's like, oh, like I can fall 20 feet to my next piece that's in like a perfect split or crack and it's going to hold me and I'm okay.
Mhm.
It's like, if you fall 8 feet, you're going into like a boulder and you really need to assess terrain really differently because the consequences are there. They're very real, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, with Alpine, it's a little bit different, right? Like you've got, maybe you don't have, like you're saying, like the splitter crack and your pieces are pretty far apart. So in between that protection, I'm banging on rocks to see if they're good prior to, pulling on them.
Yeah.
I'm going to like be thoughtful about my shoe selection. Are the boots that I'm climbing with up to 5'8" the climbing boots that are going to keep me on the wall, or should I have worn rock shoes because my movement's not there? But
Yeah.
like all this like helps you build up being successful, not from where you're, like what harness that you have on, your boots, like everything, your rope, like all those things, your partner, your mindset, your placement, like it all builds up to being safe, like safe-ish.
Yeah.
Nothing's safe,
Yeah.
just safe-ish.
Safe.
But yeah, with the piece, but with the pieces, yeah, like even with a good, like an ATC or Gree, like, having not that many pieces in the Alpine, yeah, you have to put a good piece in before and after critical moments. So like, make sure you're doing that. Like, there's no point to like just run it out just to run it out. Like, let's be smart, place the pieces where they need to be placed to protect yourself in the midst of the crux, and on easier terrain too. Like, complacency happens on the easiest freaking spots of climbing. I know I've fallen off of freaking 5.6 and been like, yeah, that sounds about right. And like, I like should have put a better piece in, or like I could have taken a easier fall, So
Yeah.
I think that's like the big thing with, whatever we're talking about, with all the climbing stuff.
Absolutely. I've paid the complacency price. So
Yeah.
It's very real, unfortunately.
It sounds like you've had a lot of time to work on your athletic portion and I would say, the athlete portion of your climbing career. But here you are as a professional guide as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about the balance between pursuing goals as an athlete and also goals as a guide as a career?
God, it's so freaking hard, bud. It's so hard. Like, I just like am always tired. And, like right now, so I'm in that process, right? Like I am training as an athlete and I'm training because I have a expedition that's coming up in a couple days. Holy crap. Then I'm also training for my Alpine exam at the same time.
Yeah.
So your answer is just to do both at the same time.
Apparently, because this is my thing, and this people are probably like, you're overdoing it, which I know I am, but it's what I can. It's the only way right now. So if, say if I have a trip on Monday and I just gone off a trip on Sunday, that Sunday after I've hiked down, I go to the fucking gym and I start off with stretching. Then I do a little session, just to warm up. And it depends on like what I'm working on. Like, okay, well, I'm going to go do 4x4s today because I need to work on my my endurance part. And then I'll do like maybe some like maintenance on like weights afterwards. And then I'll switch it then on the day that I come, or maybe the next morning, if I have time and I'm not feeling too bad, I'll do a bunch of stretching. I'll do my abs and some like hangboard sessions. And I'm guiding. And then sometimes I'll bring my hangboard or my blocks out there with me. And I do like a full on like I'll have like somewhat of a rest day, but really like I'll work out too as I'm guiding. And then I'll like come home and like literally go to the gym that night and do this like all the time. And, you know, I'm probably doing it totally wrong and people will be like, you're gonna get hurt. I have not gotten hurt yet. I do a lot of stretching and I do like make sure that I'm not like, if I'm feeling weird about something, I like come off really quickly and I'm like, I'm not done. I'm done for the night. Like, I don't need to keep going. Like, I'm pretty good about that. But like, usually I'm not this back to back with things because I'm not always going on a trip. But like, sometimes I get to like train like 2 months prior before like guiding season or like maybe a small climbing trip. And then I'm like, oh, I got to like focus primarily on my personal climbing. And now I get to go into my guiding, you know, but right now it's been so like, I'm like, well, I haven't been able to big wall climb. I've been in the Alpine, but all I can do right now is be like really freaking strong with my fingers. And like, so I literally like will go to the gym and just climb as many climbs as I can in a day, you know, sometimes or like in my session. And then I just make sure I do a little bit of weight training as well. And then, yeah, it's been kind of freaking hard because I didn't want to go into Pakistan where I was going to have to do catch up. I don't have to do catch up right now. Like my fingers are really strong. I'm actually really psyched. What I need to do is not go to the gym today, tomorrow, the next day, or the next day. Okay. So, because this
I feel like
psychopath
that sounds like a pretty hard task for you, actually.
yeah. And so this psychopath cannot go to the SBP, Seattle Bouldering Project, in the next couple of days because I just need to full on rest because I trained. I did a really good job of training. Like, I feel like I kept myself really healthy. I ate really, really well this entire summer. I was able to keep my cardio up. I was able to keep my mental, you know, like stability with like going from one client to the next client and then trying to have like a social life or even have like a relationship with the man is like so freaking hard too. So I kind of had to like cut out like certain things that were priority to me. And right now my priority is me and I want to go to Pakistan and I want to do a really good job. So what I did was just be Alpine strong, just like climbing strong. And then I brushed up on my other aid stuff as well. Just like at home when I can. And I think that like, you know, I have a really good, like I'm pretty structured. So I was able to still have some rest days, even if some people were like, well, that's not a rest day. I'm like, that was my rest day though. You know, like even if it was going home, like hiking down, that was like kind of a rest day for me. Even though I have a giant pack on, I was like, it's just like how it had to be, you know? And, yeah, I think I just was like uber focused on trying to keep everything tight. And I did. And I'm excited for a break from guiding 100%. But yeah, I think it's like a hard one to tackle. And good thing I've had like a couple coaches prior to help me kind of regulate, like, what am I working on today? Where I wasn't so sporadic about my workouts. I was like, all right, today I'm hangboarding and I'm weight training. Okay, the next day or next time I'm going out, okay, I'm 4x4ing. Okay, the next time I go out, I'm going to go to the vertical world and I'm going to do laps at the gym and I'm going to lead everything I can and then top rope. So like there was like intention there. It wasn't just like I'm randomly going, like I had intentions every time I went out. So
Totally.
Yeah.
and I
Super
think
important.
that's where it is. And then I just ate really, really well. And that was like my biggest thing.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes down to just setting goals and sticking to what is your priority in your life. And it definitely seems like you have made some sacrifices in certain areas of your life. And it's cool that, you know, I've seen a lot of guides, they struggle with these two paths. And it seems like, you know, you've let go of a lot of other things just to focus on these two paths and you've successfully kind of balanced them both. So good on you. That's very impressive.
Trying. Listen, I'm trying. Some days I'm like, I just want a boyfriend. And they're like, no, I don't.
I also think like that type of training that you're describing, like when I think of it, like my knowledge is rudimentary, but like I still have quite an understanding of like physiology and exercise training. And it's like clearly your massive background in athletics and sports and ultra running, you know, your really large aerobic base, those kind of things allow you to recover a lot faster. your mentality, and then also just like having a really high like intuition and awareness of your own body and knowing when to push and when to not, right? Like somebody just starting off in the sport of climbing, if they went to push themselves with the mentality you're talking about, they're probably just going to end up in a massive deficit and dead, and then need to like take a week off and be like, wow, like why am I exhausted and overtrained, right? So there is this really like fine line to toil there. But like when you do have the stars aligned or the circumstances you have, which is like the mentality, the aerobic base, the background, and like I said, I think you'd probably be the wrong person to go sit at a beach with for 3 days, you know?
No,
not like your personality, just like I feel like your version of that would be like, I'm gonna go run the beach and do like 600 push-ups and like jump somewhere. I'd be like, yeah, okay, totally. Like,
no,
so
you know what? I'm actually I agree with you, but I am gonna be like, I'm really good at Netflixing and chilling without the Netflixing and chilling. But like,
absolutely,
I plan on doing a solo mission to Hawaii for like 3 or 4 days by myself, just so I can see some turtles and fish and swim around and not do anything else. So
you proved me wrong.
I'm gonna prove you wrong about like,
I want a picture of a Mai Tai on the beach.
I have you on Instagram, so I will see when you're posting the beach workout, and I'm gonna message you and be like, "Hey, Lindsay, remember?"
You can't do it. Yeah, I know. It's like it's even like I will probably be like, I have to do planks real quick, you know?
Yeah. Too funny.
Oh, man.
That's awesome though.
I think it's been like my favorite year though. I'm 35, so like this has been my favorite climbing year like so far. I don't know what clicked me back into being psyched and happy, but like there was a little bit there that I wasn't psyched and happy. So I was like, this year has just been like my ice season's been great, my climbing season's been great, my guide season's been great, and I'm like, I'm poor as hell. So if any sugar daddies want to come out, you know, climb with me, down. I'm just kidding, but like, not. But, yeah. So I will say, like, this has been such a great season of just keeping it together with the athleticism and, or that, you know, being an athlete and being a guide, and it's a challenge and. It's sad, you know, like I do have to like sacrifice like going out with friends. I don't drink right now. So for me, it's like, I want to go to bed. I want to get up early. I want to do my thing. And I don't know if it's being around so many people or different people on a daily basis that keeps me a little bit recluse. Like I'm very outgoing, obviously, like I'm, you know, just have a bubbly personality and I know that, but I'm very a recluse person. It takes like a lot for me to like get out to go somewhere. Like, so, I mean, and I'll get wild and stuff and Hamminator will come out and it's really fun. But like, I just like, there's also times where I'm like, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. The only person I'll talk to is my mom, you know? So like, sorry to all my friends and to, you know, to people that, you know, want to date. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess just kind of rolling into this topic. You know, from my research, you know, I think there's a bit of a stereotype when it comes to saying climbing's a male dominated sport, because I did some research and it doesn't really seem like it's that male dominated anymore. The statistic I came across was 60-40. Is that kind of accurate? Would you say that that's kind of a representation of how it is now?
Yeah, I think you're starting to see 50-50, to be very honest. Recreational and guides right now. I'm seeing it in Washington more so than anywhere else. So
that's super cool.
Yeah.
Were you climbing when it was mostly a male-dominated sport?
In my little tiny bubble of life at the time, yes, there was way more guys I was going with than women. There were women out there for sure. But I think that once I started, Texas was like, there was like trickles of women and there was tons of men, right? Even when I got into the guiding world, I was like one of the few, you know, in the guide track that was going for IFMGA that, you know, I was like the only girl in some of my courses, you know? Yeah, I think it was like much more male dominated for sure.
What do you think has facilitated the transformation to have a more inclusive sport? Was it like media awareness? Was it gyms? Uh, was it a change in society? What are your thoughts on kind of the that change that's happened now?
I think it's like kind of like a lot of all of those things. One, I think it's these all female, organizations. We've found representation, and those girls that have been decided to like have, put the foot in the door for us, for females to like be leaders and like
Hmm.
establish groups for ourselves, establish space for ourselves. There's number of groups and festivals that have facilitated that.
Do you know some of those organizations and festivals off the top of your head that we can include in the links for this podcast?
Yeah, the first company I ever worked for was an all female group, and they were chicks climbing and skiing, but now they're called Iris.
Iris.
And then, you've got She Moves Mountains. You got Hey Flash Foxy. You got She Jumps for skiing and mountain biking and some other spaces. I think that like I worked for Steph Davis's group too, and she had an all women's clinics when I first started guiding. So yeah, there's tons of, amazing organizations out there that have put the have helped women get in the leadership role or just get out of their comfort zone. And I think
Hmm.
that marketing has helped that with that as well, because now we're seeing women be out climbing some of the hardest grades and leading and guiding some of the hardest stuff too. And
On the
those that are
cover of
novice,
magazines.
yeah, and like novice climbers, circulating their like first time in the gym on via TikTok and stuff. And that's just accumulating awesomeness and projecting and passion and you know confidence to go and try something new.
Yeah,
And
and
I
take
think that
take it
like
upon themselves to make those first moves.
for sure. And sometimes you got to see somebody else do it, be it if you know them or not, to
Yeah.
like inspire you to like just get off the couch. It's just like smoking. It's like that. Like I used to smoke cigarettes and I was like, I started running. So I'd stop smoking cigarettes and it helped. Right. I don't like
Hmm.
smoke. So it's like, I think that you've got a lot of women out there that are representing the community really well in the sense of like getting other people to come out climbing. And I think I'm one of them, of course. I think that like, there's a lot of other groups I've guided for a lot of those festivals, so I've seen how they run. So yeah, you've got tons of, you've got what is it, Athena Rock Climbing? Like that's another great organization. That's an all female. Um, Gosh, there's so many. If I forgot, oh, Texas Lady Crushers, amazing women. Emily Hernandez, you're a badass. So I think that yeah, you've got a plethora of women out there that are in all different types of women, humans
Yeah. And
trying to.
you'd almost said that there was pros and cons. What can you
There are
expand on that a
pros
little
and
bit?
cons. Like I think that like you know I see the benefit, and some people might get mad at me for saying this, and I'm not talking for anybody but myself. So whoever gets a judgmental about my opinion, that's totally fine because
Hmm.
it's how I feel. I think that like it's not always great to always do female courses because here's the thing. I guide and climb with men who have helped me so much in this organization and throughout my life within this career and outside of my career, just being a good human to me. And I've learned so much about mountain guiding, climbing through men because they have different senses than us. And they learn from females as well because we have a different alarm system. And I see the beauty of coexisting and learning how to like respect each other and have that level of like, I'm supposed to be here too, regardless of my gender, because I don't check off the box every day and be like, oh, Lindsay's a female today in the male dominated industry. She's going out there to like, pile through
Prove
those
something.
men. Yeah, I don't need to prove
Yeah.
anything, because guess what? My skill level, my confidence, my expert, like my resume, the things I've worked very, very hard to be at the level that I am. I'm not better than anybody. I just know that I am exactly where I need to be. And I can only go up from here, because I'm not going to let myself go down unless I need to go take a couple steps back to get better. And that's always something that I need to do. But I don't see, like, I have a lot of friends that are females that are going to the AMGA program, the American Mountain Guide Association, to get their, certifications in guiding. And they're like, how do you feel about, how did you feel about doing only female courses? I'm like, well, they weren't available to me. And I don't think I would have taken them, because guess what? I don't get to choose sometimes if I get all female or all men. I don't want to also be categorized of just that is who I am. No, Lindsay's a freaking skilled freaking rock climber and guide, and I should be put on that specific trip because of my qualifications, not because it's a gender-based thing. I do understand when some men, because of wives and relationships, they don't want to be with a female, and I know that vice versa too. Like, women sometimes just feel more comfortable with women. I know plenty of women clients who actually feel more comfortable with male guides. I think it's also not just even about that. I think it's about like they've established a friendship, a relationship within that too. And they've done their due diligence. Like, I have friends that clients don't look you up. Like, oh, they look you up. Most of my
Oh
clients
yeah.
like, yeah, I looked you up. And I'm like, cool. So they got comfortable. Like, dude, you've done this, this, and this. So they're psyched. And a lot of times, even if it's a male, they don't get uncomfortable because I'm a female's putting the rope up. They want to see expertise. They want to see a little bit of a resume. And my big thing is I know that I have to coexist with different humans. So why not learn from different humans and not just put myself in one category? Because I'm big on diversity. That means diversity with communication, diversity with the LGBT community, diversity with BIPOC, diversity with men, diversity with women. I want to be able to chat with everybody and get to know different humans for who they are. So I can either work with you really well or guide you really well. I'm in it to win it with everybody. So for me, it's I want people to have the available space for them to start learning, and then God, exude their amazingness to everybody else, because I can learn so much from so many different people that I had no idea. So if I keep myself in one category, I'm kind of losing that, right?
Yeah.
I'm just,
I think you're talking, it seems like you're talking about an inclusivity, we're all better together, this whole,
Mhm.
I definitely want to empower, females or anybody that might seem like they're underrepresented to be included, but separating, the different groups and putting all the women here and maybe all the men here, like you're saying, that's an exclusive process. We're kind of separating instead of trying to include us all together. And like you said, we can learn when we're all meshed together a lot better.
I think, but here's the thing, I'm going to devil advocate that, because
Okay.
I also think that some people need to be in the same environment as who they want to be I'm a woman, and I do like being with all women too when I learn. And I think it's all depending on if that's your space that you want to be learned in, oh, please take that opportunity to go in the group that makes you feel comfortable and also gives you the space to learn, where it doesn't bring trauma into your life. Because there's women who have had really bad trauma with their boyfriends or male friends that are very toxic. So for them to just jump back into that to learn, it doesn't go well. So that's why I'm so happy that there's She Moves Mountains and Hey Flash Foxy and all these, Athena rock climbing and Texas Lady Crushes, to give the opportunity for these women specifically, we're talking about women here, to go and have an opportunity to learn in a great and an an environment that's comfortable. Hopefully,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
hopefully,
Absolutely.
I'm not dismissing. Like, I think that it's so great to have groups of people learning in a comfortable space. I just know that, like, at some point, I like to break that out of that mold too, so I can learn from everybody. Because
the point is that, like, if someone's not comfortable or there is like bad representation or something,
Yeah.
then like the barrier to entry is there, right? It's like, hey, like, I don't feel comfortable going to the boulder gym because there's like a whole bunch of like jack dudes who are super intimidating, like fighting for positions on the wall. So you get kind of that course or that all women's group, and maybe that gets you into it and gives you the confidence to be empowered.
Yeah.
Like, you know what, actually, like, I'm fucking awesome, man. I can do this. And then you can kind of move on to your stepping stone if that's maybe like a more linear process for you, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, like, I kind of had to branch from, I only climbed with men, and I was like, I'm not climbing with women. Like, I'm not climbing with women. I don't need to do that. And then I branched out of that because it was bullshit. Because I had been like, I had been kind of like, the thought process was like, well, I kind of had this guy that was making me competitive to other women. And then I realized that I wasn't in a competition with another woman. It's not about that. And when I found the camaraderie I found with other females that I climb with now, I was like, I get it. Like, these are the people I want to hang out with. And I choose my partner about like the camaraderie, the feeling. And I think that those groups also have the opportunity for you to meet your next relationship as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, there's pros and cons to all those things. And because you can't say everything is good about just an all female thing, because there's shit that goes down in all female things, too. So it's not like we're not human and we're not bitchy to each other. And, like, that all happens as well. It's just, I want people I'm glad that there's all different types of groups out there that everybody can go to find the next stepping stone to continue to be a leader out there.
Yeah.
So
well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, totally. Makes perfect sense for sure. I'm wondering, like, what do you think of like vulgar root names? Like, there's a lot of root names that obviously deal with like a lot of sexism and are pretty vulgar and stuff from like people who put them up. I'm wondering like what your opinion is on those.
God, okay. So I think I'm the worst person to ask this question to, because I love a good like vulgar sex, like, because I think I play like, this is probably bad me to admit, but like, I'm probably like, I think a good like I think a lot of inappropriate things are funny, and that's just how I am. And I think that like I wear shirts that say I love balls on there just for men to know that, hey, we like you. You're okay. So like, I do it right back, and I have like, I have a new route at Mineral Bottom, and people might think this is sexist, but they don't know the story behind it. And I think that sometimes these route names come along because there was something that happened, and you're like, and maybe there's not a backstory to it. Like, I was drilling the holes in the rock, and it was me and my friend Britt. And I'm like, what the freak is going on? Like, the drill is not going in. And I had it on reverse. So I ended up putting too many holes into our like anchor. And I was like, we should call it Two Women Mini Holes. Like, that's so inappropriate. And people could probably take that so funny. But like, it was legit because I like, we do have, but women do have mini holes, that, on our body. So like, it was funny to me. So I was like, kind of playing the joke. It's like, I think of like some of these things that like, I think it's all about intent, and like, I'm sure some of those like route names that are sexist were super malice and are not okay. And I think it also depends on the person who put it up, the time. Like, there's like in 10 Sleep, like there's a wall called Slavery Wall, and like they renamed it, and it still makes me uncomfortable going there just because of the history. I like choose to go to another, like climb or like climbs. I'm like, I just like, it's tainted, with like shitty fucking, I just
energy.
Feel it. Energy. I'm not good with that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's like some things that I just like laugh about. I'm like, that's like, anything that has like something about like sluts or bitches, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a slut and I'm a bitch. So I don't give a fuck what you say. Because if you're gonna try to make fun of me with that or like put me down, like, bitch, you're like the wrong person to get offended by those words. It's not me, but some people do get offended. So like, I'm going to take an account of like, that's not great for other people who don't have, who, are not me. And I'm not sensitive to that, but I am sensitive to other people and how they feel. And I think that it's warranted to like redact the names that are truly like,
Just
that's
built from hate.
built from hate. And you can feel it. I'm sorry, but you can tell when people have built that shit from hate, and that's not okay. But I do feel like humor should be in our world. So like, I'm not going to like discredit or like put down my humor that's really probably inappropriate because someone is a little bit more conservative. Like, that's fine with you, but I'll just make sure I don't do that around you. Like, I'll be like super aware of like who my audience is,
Yeah.
But with the names that are out there on the routes, like, yeah, like I'm totally down to redact and rename things that are, that person fucking put that up to hurt other people. They're an asshole. Yeah, they should be taken down for sure. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think personally, slavery wall really that's like a clear cut line there. That was like what? I've never heard of that. I'm like thinking like slightly like sexist root names or something, and like I'm not really a fan of like censorship or redacting history in a lot of times. But like that, I mean, slavery wall seems like a pretty fair line to draw there.
And I think that like if I was to put up a wall and I wanted to take back certain things like the slut word or those things, I was like naming routes that way because I'm re-owning that. That I'm like, I love Cardi B for that because she takes back everything and she, she's just who she is. And I think if you're, if you're putting up routes and you're a female and you want to take back those words, go for it. Like, but I think
that's such a great point.
Yeah. And then, but I also feel like we need to be good about like calling each other certain things, and like, I think that the sexism is there in some of those routes. And sometimes I'm just like, well, this is a fight that I don't really care about because I really want to climb this route. So
exactly.
I'm going to climb this route. So regardless of the name right now, if it specifically talk about sexism, like I have no idea, like, that's how, like what we're talking about. Like if it's like a really sexist name, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, dude. I'm going to climb this. It's not going to hurt me right now. Like this name isn't hurting me. And that's, I pick and choose on what I gonna put energy into. So
exactly.
Yeah, and I really like the point you brought up where it's like context matters, and I think obviously this is a bit of a touchy subject, but like I do think that, of like some guy like 30, 40 years ago, like okay, it's not modern day. I'm not excusing his behavior, and it's really easy for me as a guy in the modern day to just be like, oh, who cares? So like, and I understand my ignorance on that subject, but at the same time, it's like context does matter. Like it's a little vulgar. Fuck that guy, like, yeah, he was sexist. The name is sexist, but at the same time, like, like you're saying, like, hey, the climb's great. Maybe we can move past this and acknowledge that like this was really bad, but like
in the past,
the time, just like, like whatever.
I mean, if it's really bad though, I don't want. Why don't we just redact the name and still climb the route? Like there are ways around that. Like because I'm not promoting sexism here. Like I don't
sure. Yeah.
I don't want the generation to male to get even worse. We're actually kind of on
absolutely.
this uphill of you guys. I mean, I don't know you guys personally, but like, specifically in the guides that I've seen and the climbers that I've seen are going up in the fact that like we're on the same playing field, and like we're getting there and there's so much work to do. So I don't want it to continue down the road or it being like, okay. But, like there are certain titles around me, like that's not that bad versus maybe this other name is really fucked up. Then I'm going to, say something. So I think, it depends. Yeah, for sure.
Context matters. Yeah.
Context matters. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Have you noticed any areas other than route names where sexism has kind of like plagued the sport?
Other than, well, yeah, I mean, like guiding.
And guiding, please explain. I mean just maybe like, a couple hot topics.
Yeah, I think that like I've fought to be able to guide a certain route, but I felt like I wasn't allowed to guide it, even though I had a rock guide certification. and my Alpine course done with an ice course and a pro one, and some other things that would keep me in the scope of practice. But I felt like the owner, the guide, was definitely keeping me at a certain level because he did not want to see me guiding the whole. I have a 100% think that they'll let somebody else do it, but not me. And I think that the power of misogyny is there 100% in guiding. And I think that it's not every company, but women should be very thoughtful about what company they're going to. There's going to be sexism there, guys. It is misogyny. I also think that if you really put your foot down, come in with confidence, come in with a resume, come in like anybody else would, and make a good, it sucks that you have to make an argument, but freaking if that gets me to get to the next step, so the next person behind me, it's easier for them, I'll make it hard for me so the next lady can get it easier. I'm fine with paving that way. And I think that there's some of us that are doing that, and I'll hear well, it was easy, they let me do it. You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Because that was maybe some of us other, a little bit older generation who paved that way for you to climb it, because we want more women out there guiding and climbing big things because we're competent to be able to do that. And I think that it just, I see that sometimes, within the guiding community. I also see it from clientele. I'm with 8 dudes that are all corporate dudes, and then it's just me and another female. And regardless of if I'm professional or not, I feel like sometimes I'm a piece of meat to look at. And it's it does not matter. And it's that evolution of a man is not that. I'm sorry, evolution. That type of man is never going to evolve past that. And that sucks. And I can easily be oh, I don't want that trip, because I know that that's going to happen, and I can say no to it, real fast. Or I have to pretty much have a big presence within that kind of group and look them straight in the eye and be you're not going to mess with me,
Yeah.
But I still feel under the microscope as this little mountain chicken to look at,
Yeah.
And that's, it's not just with other mountain guides, it's also with clientele. It's hard, and it's one of those things of how do I be very professional and also stand my ground and not I don't want to be in an argument. I'm not trying to get in a fight with anybody. I don't need to get in a fight with anybody because I'm an adult and I can talk to you about this, and I can be look, this is what's going to happen today. If I see any more chatting about, females in that way, we're done. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
And I even do that with other guides too. I'm hey, do you understand that what you just said? And I'll pull people aside, what you just said in front of clients is now going to give them the green light to talk to me in this non-respectful way. You better switch your tone, switch your attitude towards me, or we're going to have a problem, because you're not going to like what I do next to you. And most of the time, men, and I think a lot of women, when they go into these very male dominated situations, because sometimes you're the only female, and being taken seriously is hard. And I think for me, I just walk in like a little powerhouse, exuding the most confidence, because I do know that I can do everything. And I just switched on with professionalism. And, I make sure that the other guides treat me respectfully, and then they have my back if anything is being said inappropriately. Right? Me and my guides are on the same page. And I think that what I see from females that aren't there yet, maybe they will never have the presence that I have, but I nib it in the butt real fast. I don't win every time. There's going to be sexist chats towards me and remarks and stuff. And I'm not going to get a lot of the climbs sometimes that I want to guide, because I do think it's depending on the guide or the owner, they might just always want a male on it because that's the norm. Now I want to break that for sure. And I'm trying. And I think that like this past season when I was ice climbing, I always wanted to lead or guide Bridal Veil Falls. It's like WI5, 5+.
Yeah.
And Vince Anderson, who is like my hero, like my idol, dude, like love Vince. He watched me climb this thing on the Camper Road, which is like M8 WI5+. I climbed that ice pillar so beautifully that day. I ended up falling on ice that day because I was an idiot, and I was fine. It was all good. But he saw me climb it. Like I had climbed that thing so beautifully, and then hired me to guide two male clients of Bridal Veil. My first time to ever guide it.
Yeah,
that's pretty rad, right? Like he saw me, and he was like, "That girl, I don't even care. That's a girl. Like that person up there just is gonna guide my two people."
Yeah,
and I think that like, sorry, go ahead.
But just professionalism and excellence speaks for itself, and it seems to be a theme with you in this whole podcast that you exude that with everybody that you meet, and I think that's so important. You definitely like are in control of the image that you present to other people, and it's awesome that you've been living your life like that. It's inspiring.
Thanks. I just know that like it's not going to go away. But what I can control is myself and how I deliver everything every day. Did I go through my checklist as a guide today and say, did you prep the client? Are you packed? Do you know the climb itself? Have you done your research? Have you looked at the weather? Have you done all these things? Because all of that is going to show a lot of freaking professionalism and expertise right there, to where that client or that guide is going to be like, hell yes, like that's why we have this person on the team. And that's going to pave, and the fact that I'm a female, it's going to pave other women to be able to do bigger things.
Yep.
And that's what I think that's where I play in this whole thing. I think it's really hard for me a lot of times, and I'm like psyched to like bulldozer it down for other women too. So
yeah, definitely seems like you're doing a great job.
I hope so. Gosh. I fuck up all the time. Don't think this is perfect. It is a shit show sometimes, Sam. So don't worry.
I think that's a pretty common thread to people we speak to, though, right? Like everybody has their horror stories and kind of their state of organized chaos where they're just making it work and it happens, right? So as long as you're working hard and you're being consistent and you're owning the space you're in, like you'll get there if you persevere.
It's hard to argue with that. Hard to talk down and hard to argue with someone who's owning themselves like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's the big thing. It's like standing the ground, putting a boundary down. Like sometimes I do social contracts with people before we even like leave the area. I'm like, with men and women, or if it's just men or just women or a mixed bag, I'm like, hey, before we leave this conversation or this group circle to go to our climb, we're going to have a social contract. You're not going to talk to me, my co-guide, or my other co-guide in any inappropriate way. If anybody does, you get to go down back to the car. I will not put up with that. Now, everyone's going to look at each other. I know they're all going to have the same respect for each other. And if there's any issues, please come to me and we'll help you with it. But no one's going to talk down. No one's going to do any sexist chats or misogyny. I'm not going to deal with any of that. So everybody needs to say, I agree to the social contract, because it might not just be one person going down in your group, especially if this is like everybody knows each other. One person can ruin the entire trip for you. So pick what you want right now. And then that's how I'm like, all right, bitches, let's go have fun. So like, but like, like I just kind of like, I
lay it out.
And it works like almost every time.
Yeah. It's smart and powerful.
No, totally rad. Lindsey, I gotta say, you are just a rad person. You get me really psyched up for climbing and stuff. I'm having a blast with this conversation, so it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm really happy you're here. Yeah, Kyle, you get to move on to the kind of the next topic. I feel like that was pretty rad.
That was a great, better than I could have imagined for that topic.
Yeah,
I'm very happy with it.
absolutely. Yeah. So I guess the next thing we're talking about is a little bit like kind of into your guiding journey, right? Like, when did you know you wanted to become a guide, and what has that kind of process been like for you?
So, when I met my ex-boyfriend, I was kind of in the transition phase too. Like, I feel like I'm like 25 or 26, and I was still kind of like a 23-year-old, like didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew that I am a leader, and being like president of an organization, I built a company within the organization to be able to pay for funds for like, advertising, like little competitions that we go on or something, or like funds for our organization. So I had this like go-getter. I really like teaching. I really like climbing, and I love being outside. I remember I interviewed with Osprey Backpacks, and they're like, "We're just worried that you're gonna just jump ship and go play outside, so we're not hiring you." and then I just became one of their, like, I do a bunch of photo shoots with them, so it was like so perfect for them. And they were great. Like, I need to be outside. Like, I'm like a border collie who needs to be ran like every moment of the day. So like, I just have so much energy, and I do really like people. Guys, I have clients that I like am best friends with, and like that I'll go to their weddings, or like their homes and hang out with them. Like they're friends of mine. So for me, it's like, I think that the guiding world just called to me, and that maybe because I have a communications background, I have this like networking background, and I think that it helped with knowing that all these things that I had wanted to do within my life and with athletics could be in one pod. I was like, I'm going for it. And then I started out with my single pitch instructor like certification and my SPI. And that's where I started. And then I started guiding like single pitch stuff a lot, just to kind of see if I liked it. Cause I think it's such a great spot, or great like investment, because it's not like the rock guide course, and it's less expensive. I can see if I like it before I invest fully. And I was like, I freaking love doing this, And I was like, cool, this can kind of be the sector of things. I can do a whole lot with it. And I actually think that you make more money single pitch guiding than you do the Alpine guiding sometimes. So, and so you can do a lot with that. And then, and then once you go into that, you can do your like SPI provider and start doing like putting on assessments. And, after I think you have to get your rock guide stuff, but like, like there's so much opportunity within this single pitch world. So I went into that, and then I started doing the rock guide course, went through the rock guide process, got my certification. I'm about to take my Alpine exam. So on my second one. Ooh. Once I'm done with my Alpine, literally I go to Pakistan, guys. This is how psycho I am. Okay. I'm a psycho. I land on the 3rd. I get home on the 4th or 5th, and then my exam starts on the 6th. So I'm in it. So this is going to be really fun for me. I basically did this whole 2 months of like back-to-back guiding just so I could see if I could put up, like deal with it. I'm good. So, but like, and then I'll start doing the ski program. I have my Pro 1 and Pro 2 avalanche training through ARI done. And so that was already done, my examination done. So I'll just go through the ski program as long as I pass my Alpine exam. And if I don't, it's okay. I'll try again, because I'm in it to win it. I'm getting my IFMGA. You fail sometimes, and that's totally great, and you learn a lot from it. I'm not opposed. I failed my SPI and my rock guide course the first time. I'm YOLO. It happens, baby. Like, don't even, like, people think I'm like, I've passed everything. I'm like, no, dude, like I have failed. I'm the best failer ever. Like, I'm like the best one hang you'll ever like see, because like I always one hang everything, and then I'll send it the next time. So
there you go.
But like, yeah, so then I've been skiing since I was 3. I used to work at Telluride Ski Resort. I have a pretty good skiing background as well. I've backcountry skied a bunch. I'm going to work on that this winter more and live in Durango, Colorado again, and just work on my ski program. And I think the big thing about it is like, I love meeting people. I love guiding people. I love education. And I love like being the person that like people get so like unstoked, and I'm like a pretty good, like I'm like hype girl Ham, and I'm kind of a stickler, dude. Like I was just with my friend and I was in Eldo and I was pretty like intense with her, like about like rope tension. And like, I'm like, dude, you're walking in a slack, dude. If you freaking take a whipper on the top rope in a very low angle terrain, and you have spikes on it. Like you've got,
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? And I was pretty rough on her. And she was like, but I'm a novice. Well, I'm like, it's not about you being a novice. You can hear me. I've told you not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times. It's like the 6th time I've told you. She's like, okay, you're right. I'm like, right. Like, I might be intense with you, but there's a reason for it. I'm not gaslighting you. I need you to stop doing that or this is done. Like, and like, just because I'm like teaching, like, hey, get that bad habit out now, done. Like, let's like leave it here. So I just feel like with guiding, like I'm pretty like very blunt, and I'm not going to apologize for that, because guess what? All of my people come back for a reason because of how much of a straight shooter I am with it. I don't sugarcoat you, but I will be there for you and empathetic and compassionate. But I am going to be like, stop, no, like put a boundary down when it's necessary. But yeah, so that's like kind of like my travels right now. Like I'm within the reach of my IFMGA. As long as I pass this Alpine exam, I'll have 2 down and 1 to go. And it's a long process. It's expensive. It's a lot of time. To stay connected with your clients, to stay connected on social media, to let people know what you're doing, to be my goal is always to be able to climb the same, like 511, WI5, M6, M7, and still be able to ski all at the same time is freaking hard work. And I think there's a very few people that are guides that actually can do that. And I'm trying to be that, to be honest. Like that's my own personal goal. And I'm a climber. So I just think that like the guiding world, like I'm excited to see where it takes me in the next couple of years, with me going overseas and me having my own personal experiences. I think it's gonna be great. And I think that I wouldn't be here without the AMGA and those other humans that were in my life, even my ex-boyfriend, to be very honest. Like I wouldn't be here without us growing together as guides and climbers, So the process has been really difficult because you have to do prerequisites and then post-requisites after your courses and exams, and it just doesn't stop,
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of time away from your family, relationships. Like, I don't think I'll have a boyfriend for a little bit. I gave myself a couple more years. I'll figure it out. But like, just because I want to get through my goals, and like, I don't think that I will give that person enough of me until I'm like done with some of this stuff, and so I mean, you miss weddings, you miss birthdays, you miss Christmas, you miss Thanksgivings, and it's just a lot of sacrifice, and because you're giving it to other people. And I don't think that like some of these clients or people that are just doing even 1 dayers understand like what we go through, as guides, and we don't get paid as well as we should, and I think that like the return on investment is not quite there all the way, and it's starting to become there, and you have to hustle, and that's totally fine. I'm down to hustle, but it's expensive. My exam is like $3,900 or $4,100. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Super
a lot of money.
expensive. Yeah. Is
So
there any like advice you would offer to like any aspiring female guides out there, or just guides in general? Like maybe just some quick tips that like you found to be helpful or useful.
yeah, get another job for sure. I think that like I think that like I so I wait tables as well, and I try to like I'm sure I could do marketing stuff, but again, like waiting tables, I don't care. Like it's easy money. And I put that money aside to help me pay for my exams or my personal trips and stuff. I think it's about like knowing that this is not a money, you know,
you
getter.
gotta go into it with the right expectations.
Yeah, you gotta know that like this isn't. You're not gonna be rich off of this. And if you are, that's sick. Whoever you are, I want to meet you. And I think the big thing is, I think there are some really, really successful guides that actually make a lot of money. I think here's the thing. You need 10 really good clients. So if you're starting to build your brand, I'm not talking about like, being with, I mean, you, right? Like Lindsey Hamm is a brand, right? Like people are hiring me for this. And then we go through the companies I need to go to. Start writing down on an Excel sheet all your clients. And then as you're moving through the process, and as you're going to different locations to climb or guide, email these people just like a newsletter of some sort, like, hey, I'm guiding here, here, and here, and start planting seeds. And almost like a marketing strategy, like, like companies will start doing their summer stuff, like, like in winter, like they start like advertising for all that stuff.
Totally, yeah.
It's the same thing. So the
Yep.
big thing is like recording the clientele and also keeping up. And sometimes you'll just erase something, maybe put a little line through the ones that you're like, that was a one-off, right? But then keeping the relationships up and then always keeping those people like wanting more, and like that's what you need to do, And I have a spreadsheet of like all my clients.
Mhm.
I'm not always the best, like sometimes because I get really busy in the summers, and then I like kind of shut off sometimes, like I'm not talking to anybody, and then I need to be better. But I have like 5 really great clients that hire me multiple times,
That's awesome.
and I would like 5 more and then that would just keep me alive, the whole
Yeah.
time.
In the end, it's a business.
It is a business.
You're creating a business, and you need to treat it that way. And I think that, with any business, there are multiple facets other than just doing the job. And so, like, just like you said, like coming up with a marketing plan, keeping contact with your customers, like these are all things that are going to lead you to success in the future, and to have a nice, easier process of having return customers, which is another huge part of business too. You don't want to always be trying to find new customers all the time.
No, because isn't that more money to hire on more customers? And so,
It's more
or is it like
expensive
the
to
other
hire
way
on a new
around?
customer. It's more expensive to find a new customer usually than it is to get a repeat customer.
Keep an existing
So
one, yeah.
So there
Yeah.
you go. Right. So I'm going to keep my existing customers and build, and like, okay, if I need to go like this summer, I was like, I'm going to go to Washington because I want to see if I can get some more customers. Cool. I'll do that for
Mhm.
myself. Sweet. But I still have my 5,
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want a couple more. And so
Mhm.
that's what I do. And another thing that I think that new guides should do is go and work at these festivals like Uri Ice Fest, Crying Classics, and just get to know the brands, get to know the people, put yourself out there. Like I think that's a huge thing because then it can get you rigging jobs too. Like I'm doing a rigging job for, I can't talk about it on here, but like with some people, and I got it through meeting all these humans through these festivals, and then they helped me get
Mhm.
this job that high paying, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, I'm doing this, and it's gonna be really fun, and I get to network, and I'm such a good networker that I know that this is gonna lead to something else in the future.
Mhm.
So I think it's all about connecting and networking. And I think, if you have that skill of a salesman, it should be easy for you. If not, come hang out with me and I'll show you my little business spiel of charm. It is $5.99 Subscription. I'm just kidding.
You got to start like a sales course for guides.
Yeah. Goes to become Alpine guide, becomes like salesperson, Tony Robbins.
It would be so bad because it would be like such a fucking info commercial, because I like love a good info commercial, and they were just like, are you ready to learn how to sell yourself as a guide? Hang on, let's go through Lindsey Hamm's booklet. So no, I think that like it's all about putting yourself out there. And some guides don't want to do that, and that's totally fine. And you can be the silent crusher as well. And I know tons of guides that are not super outgoing as me, and they're crushing it as well. I think you just need to find your like your business niche, you know, and like go with it and finesse it however you want to, but just make sure you're like dialed and good. Like people just want to have a dialed guide, you know? So yeah.
Do you use social media to promote your business, or like, cause I see a lot of guides like Cody Bradford and Max Lurie, they're big on social media to attract attention to their brand. Do you have any sort of tactics like that you do for yourself?
No, but I love the tech tippers. I really want them, just to add to this, I want them all to have like a King of the Hill live, who's the best tech tipper on Instagram, and whoever wins is the only tech tipper. So no, you know, I do and I don't. I play around with it, and a lot of times I have some marketing stuff I do on mine. I could be better. I've taken a little bit of a step back from my Instagram, just a little bit, because it was just like overwhelming. And I'm not as and even though I have a social media background, like I worked for Austin City Limits in my college days, and like did their promotions and wrote on their Instagram and their Facebook. As much as I want to do that, I like my Instagram is more of like, is almost like I'm like your bud, you know, and I will put out dates that I'm guiding, and people hire me like that. Yeah, I'm not as cool as Cody Bradford and them that have 22,000 followers or more. I think that's a job, and they know that they probably get paid. I'm not willing to take that job for myself because I want to go rock climbing and all these other things. And I'm just going to it's just going to implode. I don't want to make content and do that.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like these guys putting all these tech tips out and stuff, and these constantly putting videos, like it's definitely easy to overlook just how much time and effort these guys spend to curate this content for their audience. Like it is a full-time job.
And you're already busy. You got your climbing going on, you got your clients, you got everything else. It's like, then, you know, it might be like, oh, this is only going to take 8 or 10 hours. It's like, yeah, but do you have 8 or 10 hours?
Do you have that?
I mean, more power to them. Like, hell yeah, guys. Like, I like both of those humans. I think they're like two of the top people that I like look at even for myself whenever I'm like, oh yeah, how do you do that again? Let me go look at their, you know, like it's a good resource. I just I am not that person. Like, I remember one time, this company asked me to like do some stuff they have like product, like rhino skin product. And they're like, hey, can you do like some advertisements for them? And I came up with these terrible info commercials. Like there's one where I'm like standing, and they're all in my highlights. So if you ever want to look at them, it's like me standing by, I'm like standing by the boulder, and I'm doing an advertisement for their dry spray. And this is me. I'm like, I look weird. And I'm like, are the boulders making you wet? Or put some dry spray on your hands. And I like go through this tutorial, and I'm awkward as hell. And I'm like, that. And I gave her that. And like, Rhino Skin ate them up and like reposted all of them. I was like, and so there was one where like my friend Katie's like videotaping me, and I'm like, I cannot keep it together, and I'm just laughing, but then I finish it and I'm like, it was great. But I just think that like my content would be, because people have asked me to do tech tips as like a female, like there's no females that are doing it. I mean, there's some, but I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be tokenized just because I'm a female doesn't mean I need to fucking do this. I'm not checking that box off. I think that you're looking at it in the wrong way if you're going to put gender on everything with that. Like they're just really skilled freaking climbers and guides who put out really good information regardless of their sex, and that's great that they can like do that and have the time.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Totally.
And I'd be terrible at it. I'd probably make a sex joke about everything like I do with so my inappropriateness. So.
I think last time we spoke, you said that if you, or we will say when you get fully certified with the IFMGA, you'll be the 18th woman who's ever been fully certified in all those disciplines. Is that true?
I'm projected to be, but there could be, I could be like number 20th. I think that was like, I haven't, because there's 2 women, I think, like, or 1 woman above before me, I think. Yeah. And she's on my Alpine exam. So I think she might be 17th or 18th, but I think it's, if she gets 17th, then I'm projected to get 18th, as long as this goes well. And then I get the ski program. If not, it's like Lonnie or somebody else. But like, dude, it's not a race. It's just like,
no, totally. I was just wondering about it. Yeah. No, that's really cool. That's super interesting. Do you feel competitive though? Like, are you interested in trying to vie for a closer spot a little bit?
Top 20, top 20.
Top 20, bitches.
Yeah.
Of course. Why not? Like,
no, totally. That's sick.
I'm not competing with like it would be just like legit and an internal, competition.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be like pitting myself against anybody, because that doesn't go anywhere, right? Like, I'm friends with all these women. These women are amazing. So it's like, I'm just doing it out of my own friendly competition. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For myself. Yeah. Yes. I'm
That's
definitely trying to do that. And I'm competing with other guides too. Like, listen, we're all kind of competing against each other. But if we're all in good competition, where it's not like malice or like you're being a dick to each other, and you're actually out there to help one another, regardless of what company you're existing in that day, you're a good guide. I'm not going to be a dick to you, as long as you're not a dick to me, obviously. And if you are, we'll just go to the side and have a little conversation, and that's totally fine. But like, I think that there's always competition in the guide world. And of course, I want to be top 20. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, rad. Super rad. I know we're coming up at the 2-hour mark, and we want to be respectful of your time here. But if you're okay, I definitely would love to ask you a little bit about Pakistan. Like, what do you do in Pakistan? Give us the the 411.
I'm so excited. Okay, so my friend Sarah Steele, she talked to me about going to Pakistan like a year ago, and she's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I'm already in.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?" It's like done. Because I had already gone, because I've been like, I need to go back overseas and put up another, like, I haven't had the opportunity again. I'm kind of giving myself to other people. She's like, let's put a group together. I'm like, cool. I'm like, Josie McKee. That's our next woman that we're getting on our team, because one, Josie's freaking amazing. One of the most genuine humans I've ever met. She's very skilled. She's awesome to get along with, like, just good human. And by the way, this wasn't like an all-female group. It was, we picked these people because of their skill set and if they would fit within the mold that we were creating, right? Like, it has nothing, it's about vibe. It's about skill set and about like what we all like, objective, right? Are we, we all have like a similar thought process on like what objective. And then I invited Sam Stuckey, awesome young kid. Wanted another dude. I wanted a dude on there too, for sure. But also I wanted his ability with aid climbing, because him and Josie were like amazing aid climbers, are amazing aid climbers. So it's like, now we have 2 aid climbers, and then me and Sarah, who are like skilled in the Alpine and other places. So we were filling in, like, everybody was going to have like a strength and weakness. Well, Sarah is pregnant, so she's not going. And then Josie just had other awesome life stuff that was like curating too. And she had to pick between this business and going to Pakistan. And she picked the business. And I'm so proud of her, because she's such a rad human. And then I looked at Sam. I go, Sam, I'm in. What do you hear? Yeah. And so then it ends up being me, Dakota Wolves, Lane Malthus, Thomas Wojowski, and Sam Stuckey. So I'm going on an all-male trip. So it's basically it's Lindsey and the token men. So I'm really psyched, And Dakota and Sam are very skilled aid climbers. Lane Mathis is an amazing photographer, also has put up a lot of climbs with Sam and Dakota all over. And then Thomas and I are both like really good climbers, good Alpine climbers, both guides. So you have that who has like I climb really well in the ice and mixed terrain. So if we ever had to deal with that, so does Thomas. So everybody has like a position, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's like all aid climbed and done a bunch of stuff like that. Some are better than the others. So me and Sam had done a bunch of research in the Chiracusa Valley. I sat down with Vince Anderson. Vince has been feeding me this information. Like just planting the seeds, sending me so many pictures of his expeditions, and you have to go over there. So I think it was like a lot of Vince too, just being like, go ham, go ham, go ham. And like, so I was like, yeah, okay. So like me and Sam like put this like team together, and like Sam has done a bunch of like on his own, has like folders of like Pakistan stuff. So what we're doing out there is going for low hanging rock climbing routes. We're not doing anything in the full Alpine. The only reason we're preparing for some of that stuff is that we do have to get on a glacier to get on a climb. We can, those that are like, I would be the one that would help out with all that too, and be the strong one for climbing any of that terrain. So we're going into this valley just kind of near K7 and looking for some climbing, and we're just going to go for it. You know, I think we're going to climb like Naysayer Brack, which Steve House put like a 510, like huge grade 5 on. And, so I'm sure we're going to do that climb and just do like a warm up lap and like get acclimated and then start looking for lines, and we're going, it could be a 5-year project. Who knows? Like, I don't know. We're going into it optimistic and psyched and happy. And our group is so amazing because we all like have communicated so well. And I think that's the thing. Like, it's just great vibes. And I'm sure we have like 5 of us. So it's like, if anybody gets mad at each other, we'll just like play Catan and flip the board if we need to, you know? There's going to be some like, and so I think that like this group is such a great, just a good crew because we just get each other, you know? Like I've had like little like moments with each one of them, good and bad, and we've dealt with it perfectly. And I'm like, well, as long as that's happening here, that's what's going to happen out there too. Because I'm not going to change much. Like that doesn't change. Like how I'm treating you right now, like that's how I'm going to talk to you on the wall, you know, and probably even calmer because I'm not trying to get on a fight on the wall. I want to be calm and get through the process and fix it versus like making it worse, and just communicate if I'm feeling bad. And I think we've talked about all this. So I think that like we're just psyched about going out there on an adventure. I'm giving, I have about $1,000 worth of school supplies that was actually supposed to be for another India trip, but COVID happened, couldn't get back there. So I'm giving it to the school that Steve House has given me information about. We're also donating, he's donating money to it too. So it's a good thing. It's not just about the climbing for me. I always bring school supplies over to areas that I'm going to, because I think that kids are in need of that. I think I've asked when I was in India in the Zanskar village and Actu village, I asked the mom, or I asked my liaisons to ask the mom, like, what do the kids need? And she's like, school supplies. So hard.
Yeah.
So I had like, I'm always like, school supplies or money for the teachers, you know, pay their salaries. Let's do it. So that's a big part of this trip for me. I think one of the biggest parts.
That's super
so cool.
rad. I'm actually familiar with the school document and stuff. Steve House personally is like my favorite climber and alpinist. And like training for the new alpinism is kind of what got me into endurance training and into mountain training. So, you know, I'm familiar with some of Vince Anderson's accolades and Steve and as well the Valley with K7 and some of their climbs there and stuff. So yeah, that's so rad that you guys are going there and you're doing that. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go to that high of altitude. Like our altitude's like under 6,000 meters. Which is cool. You know, we're just trying to rock climb. I just want to go rock climbing, guys. I was going to put up routes. I want to stick my hand in some cracks. I want to I want to try really hard. I want to be really safe. I don't want to break any legs or anything like that. So just coming back like healthy and as well as I can, and like just be friends with everybody is like the biggest goal too, alongside of like climbing something, obviously, because I want to put a line up, but like I want to come home alive, and I want to come home friends with the people I went with. So
Yeah.
Nice. That's so cool.
No.
So yeah.
Kyle, I don't know. I think that might be a perfect place to end this conversation. How are you feeling?
Sounds great to me, man.
Yeah. Lindsey, I just want to say, you are super, super rad. You've gotten me crazy motivated. This conversation was unreal. And I'm so happy that we ended up connecting and got you here. I really appreciate your time. I'm actually going climbing with my girlfriend. We're going to go climb the Chief tomorrow. And like, you've just gotten me so pumped on climbing and everything. So, yeah, it's really awesome. And who knows, maybe even in the future, if you want to, come on the show again and tell us about your trip to Pakistan and stuff.
Yeah.
I know I'd love to talk to you again. So
yeah, we
thanks
should
so
do a
much.
follow-up for sure. One last thing I want to shout out to people is that like, find a good space to learn, go try hard, and get like a really good, find friends that are uplifting, and teachers and mentors that will keep you motivated and stoked, and to continue with your passion. If it's in climbing, if it's not, like just find a good group. And if you need any help with the climbing, mentors, like hit me up too. I do mentor days as well. I want anybody and everyone to feel comfortable coming to me for any advice and a good conversation. Even if you're like, I just need to talk to you about this. Like I've chatted with many people about AMGA stuff or just climbing or guiding. And so please use me as a resource as well. I don't put tech tips up there, but I do give high pro ham stuff out to people. So just psyched on letting everybody know that like I'm a resource for you too, for everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's conversation. Just a friendly reminder that we'd love to hear from you. Whether you're going through an injury, have a rad story, or just want to share stoke for the podcast, we are always pumped to receive messages. Until next time.